Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Ealing Road podcast. After a short break away, we're back with a new episode and we're going to briefly go over Bournemouth, answer some questions from Twitter and the GPG, and also look ahead to a trip to Newcastle this Saturday. Just before we get going, remember, if you haven't listened to the podcast before, please leave a rating on our YouTube and Spotify channels. Follow us on our social media accounts. That's at the Ealing Road on Twitter and at Ealing Road Pod on Instagram, and also share the pod around with your mates. We are still looking to boost our listenership at the moment, and with a few more Twitter spats like the one I had in midweek with a few Fulham fans, hopefully we're on our way to doing that. Joining me today,
John Terry as well. Hey, that was interesting, wasn't it?
I know. I had no idea. So I was in Spain at the time, and I saw that the impressions on that tweet had like something stupid like 100,000 or whatever, and I didn't even clock that John Terry had replied. It was only when Niall told me. He was like, yeah, why the hell is John Terry getting involved? So I had a look and I was like, fuck.
Thanks, John Terry. That's all I'm going to say. So, yeah, give us a follow now. That's what you're going to do, mate. That's what you're
got a few followers off the back of that. So, yeah, remember to share it around with your mates, guys. Joining me today, you might have heard, is Callum. Callum, all good, mate? All good on this evening?
All good. How you doing, buddy? You all right?
Yeah, perfect. Let's just get down to it because a lot has happened since the last time we recorded. I thought we'd go through Bournemouth, answer a few questions, and obviously get to Newcastle. We'll keep the talk about Bournemouth relatively brief, as it was quite a while ago now. Callum, main takeaways from that game, apart from the poor finishing on display.
Yes. Well, yes. I think obviously Sharda getting his first goal. Was it his first goal? It was
first goal.
Yeah, first goal. Yes,
first goal. Yeah.
So I mean, it's fantastic for him. I think to go and finally score that goal for us. And I've said this before on the podcast. He's only going to kick on. I think now. He's had opportunities. Obviously, going on from there, and I think he'll do well going forward from now. So it's a good positive for him. Other good performances. I think the most notably, I think Jensen as well. I think did very well. He scored another good goal. Eventually given, obviously by VAR, which was a bit interesting after taking such a while to be given. But look, there was a lot of negatives in there, but there were some good positives in there as well. Good to score a couple more goals and obviously get a late goal from Mbuemo, which was good as well. So yeah. We'd like 3, but we've got something, which is good.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, Sharda got his first goal against Palace.
Palace.
But
apologies.
He had he was really unlucky to hit the post. It was actually a really good save. I remember in watching it back. Neto makes a really good save, kind of tips it onto the post. Are we in the territory of starting to expect more from him? Because obviously he was quality against Palace, really good against Bournemouth, and like I said, unlucky to not get a goal with that effort in the first half. Can we expect more from him now to kick on?
Don't see a reason why not. I mean, it's he's having these opportunities now, and he's getting himself into these positions, which probably not necessarily he was doing, beforehand. He was on a bit of a low. I think obviously he has this high price tag of £23 million, for a player to come in. It's obviously there's a lot of pressure on him to do well, and he obviously hasn't scored as many as I don't think he would have liked. But he's getting himself into these positions now, and I think he's only going to go and kick on, score some more goals, and do well for us.
Yeah, let's hope so. We had a few questions on Twitter and the GPG about Nathan Collins' omission from the starting 11 in place of Ben Mee. Harsh, Callum, considering how good he'd been at the start of the season?
Absolutely. I said in the last podcast we did, I feel it would be incredibly harsh to drop Collins. I feel, the performance, particularly at Fulham, where he looked so confident, as I touched upon in that episode following that as well, that, to go to Fulham and win 3-0 was a big statement, and he didn't look troubled at all. He didn't look troubled. He looked composed. He's fitted in very nicely into that back line. So, of course, it was a big shock for me to see him get dropped. And especially since we haven't lost so far this season either. Before, obviously before Ben Mee came in, I was surprised. I was very surprised when that team sheet came out. But obviously Ben Mee's done a lot for us, so it's a difficult one. But I feel for what he's done for the club so far this season, he shouldn't have been dropped. But it's not the manager's call at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to sort of go into hypotheticals, but I would have thought that Nathan Collins would have been a better place to deal with Solanke's first goal. Because the only thing and like you said, Ben Mee's done so many good things for us over the last year, but the only department where he does lack is his pace, and he kind of and to be fair to Dominic Solanke, I think he's a bloody good striker in the Premier League. He's come on leaps and bounds in the last couple of years. I think he's got double digits last season, I'm pretty sure. But he kind of just weaves in and out, gets Ben Mee flat-footed and goes through his legs. But maybe Collins would have been better placed, but it's easy to say that with hindsight. I think that Bournemouth second goal just goes to show how the difference between the Premier League and the Championship, when even against teams like Bournemouth, who, with no, just I say teams like Bournemouth, we always get teams like Brentford being thrown around, but against teams like Bournemouth, who we would like to beat at home, especially if we want to, solidify our place in mid-table, we'd like to beat those kind of teams at home. You do get punished for those kind of errors.
Very much so.
Word on Rico, he lost out in the England call up, and then
I think it's frustrating. I don't really know what else he can do as a player to get into the team. I mean, Southgate has been down, I think, at least once this season to the G-Tech. So I'd love to know really what he's watching. Has he just come for a bit of a joy? Like, it's like, what is he watching? You've got a player there who's put himself into the Premier League and is fitted in ever since we've got promoted, and he's been one of our most notable players. He doesn't get talked about as much as he should do. This is the frustrating thing. I don't think he does. By pundits from Match of the Day, Sky, etc. I'm frustrated for him, because how much more realistically can he do to get in that England team? Yes, he made a mistake on that game the other week, and he'll be hating the fact what he did that, because he put in such a good shift again on that Saturday game. But he'll want to kick on. He'll want to make up for that mistake, and I'm sure he will.
Yeah, I mean, Trippier started at left back last night against Scotland, and this is the thing. I think at left back it is difficult, because you got Ben Chilwell, Luke Shaw, and Kieran Trippier, three very different players, and Rico Henry's completely different to all three of them, I'd say. Maybe Trippier's a bit more comfortable on the ball than Rico Henry, but still, I mean, I'd still try and favour a left-footed left back on the left side of defence rather than playing Trippier on his wrong foot. We'll on to Brian's equaliser for the goal. Maybe we will talk a little bit about England, because I know you're a big England fan. A few talking points from last night's game and the 1-1 draw against Ukraine. No, we'll do that after this. But Brian getting the equaliser later on, making amends for that absolute sitter in the start of the first half. I know how he missed that, because he's Brian Mbeumo and he misses 5 or 6 of those every season. But he scored last night for Cameroon as well, which means they've qualified for AFCON in January. How big of a miss is he going to be in January?
Massively. I mean, you look at what he offers, obviously, on the pitch, and with his obviously penalty taking in Tony's absence. He is a player that, although he misses a lot of opportunities, as you touch upon, he is a big miss for us. Big miss. And yes, it gives people an opportunity to come in who maybe haven't had that opportunity, like Keane Lewis Potter, for example. But he's a big miss, and you look at that composed finish against Bournemouth, and you say, we're going to miss that. We are seriously going to miss that. And I hope he doesn't get injured. That's my thing here, where I'm like, he's going off to play all these games, possibly at the AFCON. And obviously, it's a lot involved, the travel, everything like that. That it's going to be a lot on him. So I hope he doesn't get injured from this, but he's going to be a big miss.
Yeah, I think it's a strange one, because obviously Tony comes back in January as well. It's not going to be kind of a like-for-like swap, because they're two completely different players. But it's difficult to see how we're going to be shaping up, especially with the addition of Neil Maupay, which we'll get onto. We can get onto that now. Neil Maupay back at Brentford. It's such a weird kind of turn of events. First of all, we go for Gonzalez. Then Fabrizio reports that we've had a bid accepted for Bakayoko from PSV. Look like we might be in for Etikite from PSG. Obviously, these names are just baffling as well, by the way. And then out of nowhere, a tweet comes through from Fabrizio saying we've agreed to re-sign Neil Maupay. I mean, I could not contain my excitement. Honestly, I know he's been pretty garbage for the last 2 seasons, and I'm sure Everton and Brighton fans will tell you the exact same thing. But when I saw that tweet, I just thought, I really couldn't believe it. What was your reaction?
I was shocked as well, because I actually had a friend that was at work, typically, who messaged me and said, "Oh, you're going in for Maupay," and I thought it was one of these jokes, but because it just came from nowhere. Usually, you have some kind of build-up where some obviously media outlet particularly Sky like to talk about rumours in particular. But the fact it was one of these that snuck in and no one reported it beforehand, it was quite different. Right? It was quite exciting, actually, to be honest with you. But it's great. I think it's great. You've got a fan's favourite back at the club who, he said in his interview with Sky Sports on deadline day, he's back home. Like, he loves this club. We made him in England, basically. So for him, great to come back. I mean, people will look. I had this lengthy discussion the day after against Bournemouth with someone on the train, and I said, how can you look at how he played at Everton when practically the whole club was falling apart? Like, there's nothing going on at Everton at the moment. They're in a complete freefall. Look at what he did at Brighton. I look, when we went there a few seasons ago, I think it was on Boxing Day or something like that. He scored an absolute screamer against us. He did a very good job at Brighton, and he did a very good job for us as well. So we need to look at that. We can see that's where he's fitted into a team who's doing well, who's thriving. Everton, we shouldn't be looking at what he did there, because realistically it's a team in freefall, and the club have probably seen that as well. We've got him on a good price as well, I imagine. Obviously his contract was up soon. Obviously loaned to the end of the season and then see what happens. But it's a big club. It's a big signing for the club, and I'm going to see him doing well. I can see him doing well. He's going to do well for the club. So we need another Leeds United celebration. It needs to happen. So glad to have him back.
Yeah, no, especially if we can get him back to that kind of form that he showed in the Championship. I was having a look at his kind of highlights reel from that season, where those were that season where he got plus 20 goals, and some of the goals that you've scored, I'm thinking about the Villa game, a few here and there against. I think there was one against Millwall where he kind of like loops over a header. The Villa at home and Villa away, just some of the goals that he scored were immense. So if we can get him back to that kind of form, it's so difficult though, because when Tony comes back in, it's just like I feel like we're going to move into a position where the whole kind of structure of that front line changes. If we want to have, well, we won't have Mbeumo in January, but we're going to have Wissa, Sharda, Maupay and Tony and King Lewis Potter. It's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. We'll wrap that chat up about Bournemouth for now, and obviously Neil Maupay coming back, which I still can't really believe if he starts against Newcastle or comes on against Newcastle. It would just be
great.
Fever dream stuff. But let's chat a little about England. Callum's England home and away. Takeaways from Ukraine first, and then obviously we'll move on to the result against Scotland last night. Bit of a different segment to the podcast, but we'll go for it. Why not?
Yeah, why not? I mean, listen. There's a lot of obviously it's an exciting few months ahead now before the build up to the Euros next year in Germany. So obviously Southgate, he hasn't changed the team around too much. So it's interesting to see what he'll do. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion about the teams the players he's put in the team. Obviously, like Maguire, Phillips, who haven't played for their club. Should they really play for their country? I mean, it's a difficult one because they have offered something in the past. Again, Man United are in freefall at the moment, and Maguire is in that team at the moment. I think he should have left. I think it would have been a big thing for him. And Phillips, I think maybe he should have left City as well. But I think England, look, they didn't do the best. They didn't play the best on Saturday. They got lucky, I think, in a very, I'd say, a hostile atmosphere. Like the Ukrainians who were in Poland, they wanted to go and get that win. They can still, I think, just about qualify for the Euros as well. They're fighting in and around with Italy as well, so it was big for them. As for last night, that was the big one. I know it was only a friendly, but realistically, we didn't want to lose to Scotland. No. We wouldn't want to lose to Scotland. We wouldn't hear the last of it, and it was a very good performance from the team. We did very well. We controlled the ball in lots of parts of the game. Scotland came back into it as well, and we put away a late goal as well with Harry Kane. I must touch upon Hickey. I thought he did very well. He lasted practically the whole game before being substituted. I think in the 85th minute, something like that. So he did very well. So it was good to see him get out and put in a good performance. But it'll be interesting to see what goes on in the next few months on the lead up to the Euros with England, and what Southgate's position will be as well. Whether he stays after that or not, who knows? But we'll wait and see.
I think we're now at a point, and I don't want to get into a sense of entitlement because I know that word is bandied around when it comes to England, and we have to win something. But I genuinely think with this current crop of players, it is all or nothing now. I think it's, and it sounds entitled, but with Bellingham, with Foden, with these kinds of players in our team, with Harry Kane in his prime, still scoring goals, we've got so much talent up top, and we have so much talent defensively as well. And that's the one thing about Southgate that I really don't get. And I've started to feel sorry for Harry Maguire because I don't think he's to blame. I think I don't see a world where Southgate can pick him when he's played a few minutes here and there for United this season, and he throws him on in a big game against Scotland. He gets jeered as soon as he comes on because Southgate's called him up. Southgate holds as much as the blame for all the criticism he's getting. And he comes out in the press conference and says all the criticism he's getting is a joke. It's just like, you've caused that criticism by playing him.
Yeah.
Just give him a break, especially with the wealth of defenders we've got coming through. Lewis Dunk was superb last night, I thought. Mark Guehi's been really good. So, yeah, I think Southgate causes a lot of the problems, and it is difficult being the England manager. Obviously, you're never going to be a good English manager in the eyes of everyone. We've all got our different 11s. But I just think sometimes with people like Henderson, I know Henderson's been good for England in the past. Henderson, I don't think should be in the squad just because of the quality of the league that he's in, and that awful Athletic interview that he did a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you read any of that. Calvin Phillips has started as many games for England since he joined Man City as he has for Man City, which is just incredible. Yeah. Although Calvin Phillips was very good last night, but I think the Maguire thing, it really annoyed me because as soon as he scored that own goal last night, you know what's going to happen. He's going to be mocked all over social media. Very Even the Scotland fans are getting on his back. I know the England fans are very good, but I just feel like Southgate coming out in his post-match saying, it's a joke, all this criticism. I kind of think you cause a bit of it by picking him to play.
Yeah, very much so. But yeah, as I say, I think a move for Maguire will be good in January, whether United kind of allow that. But United, he might actually get some games now, United, with the situation they have at the moment, with ending the Arsenal game the other week with Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire at centre-back. So I think, that's interesting. But, I mean, if he gets some games under his belt now, that might help his confidence. But we'll wait and see. But yeah, I do agree. I feel that sometimes Southgate doesn't kind of help the situation by obviously picking these players when maybe they're not in the best of form or best of confidence. So hopefully we'll see a change of that maybe in the lead up, rotating some players over the next few international windows and see what happens in the lead up to the Euros. But yeah, we'll wait and see.
You going to the Euros?
I'll be there. Yeah, I'll be there. I wasn't there in Ukraine, or I wasn't there at the Scotland game, just simply because the hype around England since the World Cup again has been huge. I think they've got something like 25,000 members. Something. It doesn't sound a lot, but for the amount of tickets we get, it's not many. I mean, still doing very well. I get to, I've been to Malta very recently and those kind of things as well. So I'm eyeing up going out to Macedonia as well. So yeah, I'll be out at the Euros in Germany, just deciding what to do at the moment. So yeah, keep an eye out for the flag. I'll be there.
Good stuff, mate. Hopefully we'll have something to shout about come next summer. Fingers crossed. Anyway, we'll get onto some questions from the GPG. We kind of already answered stuff about Collins or me. I did kind of want to point out that originally Ben Mee came in as a kind of squad player, didn't he? He came in as one of those experienced players, someone similar to Zanka. It is difficult because it's like we touched on earlier. He's been so good for us, especially last season. He was, our best player bar Ivan Toney and Matthias Jensen maybe. But it's hard to judge Collins just after a few games. But I just felt it was really harsh to drop him for that Bournemouth game, especially. What against Newcastle? Are we starting Collins or are we starting me? We're going to get on some chat about Newcastle later on. Someone on Twitter stuck a full lineup in there, so we can do some lineups later on. But who are you going for?
Personally, I think he probably should go with Collins. I think Newcastle is a very difficult ground to go to. I going off topic here slightly, but I feel that it's going to be quite a difficult game for us at Newcastle. Obviously, it's Thomas Frank mentioned last season that Brentford don't necessarily like going to these grounds where there's this extra atmosphere. They struggle. We saw that at Leeds last year. We saw it at Newcastle. So it'd be interesting to see how they set up. They might even change how they set up at the back. I don't know. I think it's going to be one of these games where I think we might only just go and get another draw. I don't know. I mean, walk away with a 0-0 draw. I'll take that from Saturday. Absolutely. But
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a change how we set up. But if he keeps it the same, I would personally like to see Collins come in. I think Ben Mee really, I think he really struggled as did most of the team last year at Newcastle. So I'd love to see Collins come in and keep on impressing like he's done so far. I don't see a reason why he shouldn't come in and do a job.
Yeah, I agree. We got N5022N122 asking about whether we view the current games as 2 wins, 2 losses, or 1 win and 3 draws. I'm assuming he means how do we view sort of the Bournemouth and Palace games? Are you seeing it as 2 points dropped against them as opposed to 2 points gained?
I would say.
I think
there's
Bournemouth.
2 points. 2 points. No, I would say the other way around. I'd say 2
really?
points dropped against Palace. Actually, surprisingly. Now, I actually think Bournemouth, when we played them, yes, we had a lot of opportunities there to put the game to bed. I actually think that was one of the best Bournemouth teams that we've seen against us for a very long time. I remember Gary O'Neill last year against us on that Sky game, the late kickoff, and he set up to frustrate us. He set up to waste, time waste. Everything was going against us, and of course we did get the win. But Bournemouth actually put a very good game to us. I know we missed those opportunities, and we should have won realistically. But I actually feel the Palace game is something where I think we dropped 2 points. And that is where I would look at how we could have done things better. I think Bournemouth was a harder game out the two. I feel actually they were much better. I actually think they were much better set up than Palace. Controversially, I think they look good going forward. Not necessarily as good at the back. Touched upon Solanke earlier as well. So I actually think 2 points dropped against Palace and a fair point against Bournemouth.
Yeah, I do feel a little bit sorry for Bournemouth because I've watched a lot of their games. Well, I've watched all of their games and their highlights and stuff, and they actually haven't played too bad in any of their games. And with some of the players, like I didn't realize Ryan Christie against us was really good. I thought, and I've never seen him play that well. They've got Semenyo as well. Obviously, Philip Billing, I think, is a really good player. I'm not sure how he hasn't been poached by a mid-table or top six. Well, maybe not top six. Maybe that's a stretch. Obviously, Solanke as well. I think they do have a lot of good attackers, but what lets them down is their back line. We'll go on to the next question from Shepperton B. Can Pinnock and me play together in a 4-3-3 if we want to play out from the back? It is difficult because we did kind of do that the whole of last season and it wasn't too much of a problem. What do you think? The football purist in me thinks 2 left-sided centre halves is a bit dodgy, and sometimes Pinnock can get a bit flustered. Sometimes Me's a little bit calmer on the ball, but I guess we kind of answered the question by saying if we're going to go in a 4, which I don't think we will for Newcastle, I'd much rather have a Collins on that right hand side just to give it a bit more stability.
Very much so. I don't think personally it would work. Others may say differently. I mean, feel free to comment and say otherwise. I'm sure some will, but I don't think so. I think it's good to have Collins in there and have Pinnock next to him. I don't think necessarily it would work. But you never know. He might trial it out this weekend. Who knows? Really, we'll wait and see. But no, I don't think so.
We've got a couple of more questions on lineups for Newcastle, but we'll get onto that when we start talking about the game. Dan B on Twitter asking why we're so unimaginative with our songs and why is the West Ham the only place where noise comes from on match days. I was going to pose this question to Niall because I know he's got very strong thoughts about the atmosphere at the G-Tech on weekends. But go on, why are we so unimaginative with our songs?
Good question. That is a good question. I think we just need people to kind of maybe join in some ways. To be honest, I know you touch upon the atmosphere there sometimes. I mean, I actually thought it was very good against Bournemouth. I thought the atmosphere was actually pretty good. We need some people to maybe come up with some new songs. If you know any, then crack on. Let us know. But we need, you've got the North Stand like to join in sometimes. I wouldn't even bother with the East Stand because realistically, well, they're probably never going to come back again. Most of them anyway. So, but yeah, we just we think of some new songs. If it works out, crack on. We'll work on it, and then if not, it is what it is. But yeah, we'll wait and see.
I think I'm not I don't have too much of a problem with the most of the atmosphere being generated from the West Ham because obviously when we moved from Griffin Park to the G-Tech as it's called now, there was this whole thing about the West Ham Alliance. This is where the atmosphere is going to be generated. So I didn't I didn't really think it would be much different, and we kind of got that same kind of dynamic going on between what the Ealing Road was and the paddock was, and what the West Stand is and what the North Stand is. If you see what I mean, there's kind of two stands that kind of sing, whereas the Bill Exby back in the day didn't really used to jump about. And also we've got to take into account we're never going to get that kind of cohesion in the ground, just because the G-Tech is so much bigger. In Griffin Park, it was that tight little ground. Everyone can hear everyone. Whereas now, if there's a song starting at the top of the West Stand, which it normally comes from, I doubt people at the bottom of the South Stand are going to hear it near the away fans. So it's a difficult one. Maybe I did see Dan B tweet a song about Ethan Pinnock that we might try and get going against Newcastle on Saturday. We'll see. Yeah, we got That's BS asking if the Big Six will come knocking for Mbumo next after Tony. Callum, what do you think?
I can certainly see it. I can certainly see it happening. If he continues on the form that he is at the moment, I don't see a reason why. Certainly, someone wouldn't come in possibly in January to have a look at him at least. Brentford are going to ask for some silly money, realistically, though. So it just comes down to the question of whether anyone wants to pay that kind of money for that player. But I could actually see him going personally next summer. I think if he carries on this form, he has a good African Cup of Nations. He actually had some very good moments at the World Cup in Qatar as well. He's only going to grow. His value is only going to grow as a player, and I actually think people were going to seriously look at him. Top six, I don't see a reason why he couldn't fit into any of them. So I can certainly see them looking at him sometime soon.
I kind of want. I know that you're probably right, but I don't know with Mbumo. I feel like he has like cult hero kind of status if he stays at the club for longer than the next summer or so. I think there's something about the way he plays and the passion that you can see when he scores and when he plays well and how he reacts to the crowd. I really want him to stay at Brentford for as long as possible. But I mean, when the Big Six comes calling, as we know from the past, there's not really much he can do. But like you said, if he carries on this fantastic form, he's only second in FPL points to Erling Haaland. I saw that the other day, which is crazy. And he's really stepping up to that mantle. Like we've spoken about it on the podcast before about when the Tony news broke. We were all kind of saying this is the season for Mbumo to step up, and so far he's surpassed expectations. I really didn't think we'd come out of these first few games having the amount of goals and the amount of assists that he'd had. I know he's on pens as well, but he's still got to score him. And he's filled in for Tony so well. We've got a really good question from Richard McDougall, and we kind of touched on it earlier. Is the signing of Maupay a confirmation of a permanent change in attacking style with or without Ivan, i.e. fewer long balls to the number 9 that we've been seeing so far this season? It is a good point because without Tony, we don't have that kind of outlet when we're cooped up in our own third. The only thing is that it's going to be really difficult to play a different way against the top six, and we're going to get an early indication of that when we play Newcastle on Saturday. It was a bit different against Spurs because I feel like when we're at home and against one of the big six, it's got a different feel to it. But when we go away to one of the big six, it is a bit different. But we're going to see it. But it is going to be strange not having that kind of outlet without Tony, especially when we go into these kinds of games. What do you think?
Yeah, very much so. Very, very much so. I mean, I feel absolutely. I think we kind of going back to the old ways of I remember when we had like Watkins, Benrahma, and Buemo up front. It was a very pacey attack. I feel we're going back there very much so with Buemo, Wissa. Maupay's still got a bit of pace on him as well. So I feel we're going back to how we did things previously, and so far this season, I think similar tactics as well. It has worked out very well. But it's just the question of whether when Tony comes back in, what they're going to do, really. Who knows? Do we go back to that method again of what we were doing previously with Tony? Who knows? But we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see on that one.
We will chat a little bit about. Did you see the news about Harry Toffolo from Nottingham Forest?
Yes, I did.
A ban today. There's a bit of noise about it. I did a bit of research because I noticed in the FA spokesperson tweet that he'd been charged for breaching betting rules E1, I think it was. And I remembered from Tony's report that he was breaching betting rules E8. But I did a little bit of research and they sound exactly the same. So for the life of me, I cannot understand why Toffolo has, one, been given a suspended sentence till the end of the season, fined 24 grand or whatever it was, and he's only got a 5-month ban. Whereas Tony was fined 50 grand. he's been banned until January, and that rolls back all the way to last May. And yeah, it seems odd to me. I'm not. Maybe it leans towards what Tony was saying. They wanted to make an example out of him, but I don't really want to comment on it too much because there might be some specifics of the case that we haven't kind of taken into consideration. I know that Tony did lie in his first interview, whereas if he was fully transparent, the severity of the sanction might have been decreased. But it does seem odd.
It does seem odd. I mean, certainly, I wouldn't probably go into it too much until I see the report, obviously, which they'll have to release at some point in the near future, as they did with the Tony case. So I think that's probably when we'll then see what there is obviously some kind of difference. You may not be able to see that at the moment, but there's obviously some difference there as to why, one individual has got the ban they have and one's got another. There must be something there. If there isn't, then there's obviously got to be some questions to be answered there.
Yeah.
But I suspect there's going to be something when they release this, this spread of what the discussion was. There's got to be something in there that indicates the reason why he's got this particular ban. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, it's. I do feel for Tony though. Obviously, he's probably wondering in his head right now why he's got what he's got, and obviously another player's got what he's got. But we'll just have to wait and see, and then address the issue if it's not,
Yeah, we got one last question from Twitter. Kenzema asking something similar about sort of lineups for Newcastle, but we'll get this one out of the way before we get into proper lineups. Maupay to start over Wissa. What do you think? I mean, Wissa played well against Bournemouth, I thought. Obviously had that chance where he kind of turns the defender inside out, to be fair. He does all the hard work and then scuffs his shot against the post. I don't think Maupay's going to start. I can't see a world where he starts against Newcastle in his first game. It'll be a massive game to come into, and Wissa has largely been quite good this season.
Very much so. I don't think you can drop Wissa, to be honest with you. I mean, Maupay, I think it's going to take a bit of time for him to come in and gel, and he's in he, as he said in his interview, he does know some players, but this team is very much a different team to what he played in when he was last with us. So give him some time to gel. I would love to see him get involved at some point. I think if we're chasing the game against Newcastle, I feel he's a key player to bring on, and hopefully something he can maybe go and get a goal or something like that. But start Wissa, bring on Maupay should we require him at some point, and then see what goes from there. But I don't think we'll see Maupay start if that is up for discussion for at least a few weeks. I would like to see Maupay. I'm interested to see if he's cup tied. I think he got on the pitch against Doncaster in the League Cup, so that would mean he's cup tied against Arsenal. Otherwise, I would have said play him against Arsenal. But in the league, give him a few weeks and see what goes on from there.
Yeah, we'll go on to. We got a question from Paul Hover asking if we'd line up in a 3-5-2 against Newcastle. I will just get his lineup out now. It is difficult because we are going away to one of the big seven now. Newcastle haven't had the best start to the season, but the way he lined up was Flecken in a back five of Ayer, Collins, Pinnock, Henry and Hickey, and then a midfield three of Jensen, Norgard, Janelt, and Mbumo and Sharda up top. To be honest, I would say that's pretty spot on. The only thing I would admit, and this might be me being a bit optimistic, especially with, like I just said, we're going away to one of the bigger teams in the league. The only thing I might change is turn it into a 3-4-3, take Janelt out and add in Wissa up top and make it a three-pronged attack like we normally have. That's the only obvious thing that jumps out at me. Are you going to? I think a 5 is definitely a stalwart.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I personally feel that it's a good team. That I must say, actually, it's just the question again of whether we feel that is a team that will go and get us at least a point at Newcastle. I think they could, but it's changing that formation that has worked pretty well for us in the first few games of the season. So I wouldn't necessarily panic and suddenly change the team. I feel we've got to go into it with no fear, like we did against City, and then we can then look to go and get 3 points like we did there at the Etihad last season. So I personally wouldn't play that team, but Thomas Frank may decide otherwise. It is a difficult place to go and play football. We know that.
Yeah,
the fans are going to be behind the team. So it's going to be a hard place to go and play, but they're under a lot of pressure at the moment.
Yeah, they are.
Newcastle are under a lot of pressure, and they've also got a big Champions League game coming up, their first in a long, long time. So their minds might be on that, which this might be a very good time to play Newcastle. So they've only won once this season, and they've got a big Champions League game coming up as well. So it's a very good time to play Newcastle, and I hopefully we can go there and do the job. It's about time we go and win there. So fingers crossed, fingers crossed.
Yeah, we absolutely trounced there last season. I was just about to say Newcastle away is one of the best aways, if not the best away day in the league. But last year was just so shit on every level, just because of the performance and being 3-0 down, 3-1 down, or whatever it was after. We went.
It was bonkers. We were 2-0 down. Then Tony then scored a penalty. Then it just fell apart after that. They went down the other end practically straight away as we had brought on some players.
Yeah.
We were obviously chasing that equaliser, and they caught us on the counter and scored. And then obviously it just fell apart in the last 10 minutes. That was my birthday weekend actually. So Brentford, thanks very much for that birthday gift. But I must say, I'm going up. I think you mentioned as well, Mike. Yeah. You're going up as well, aren't you? Mm-hmm. Fair play to any Brentford fan that is actually going to that game. We've been completely screwed over by Sky Sports on this one. I said straight away when it came out, this game is gonna get moved. UEFA are going to put this on a Tuesday, and to give the fans 13 days notice to put in these plans. Fantastic from any supporter that's going. Anyone that's going up on the club coach, getting home at 3:00 in the morning. Great support. Anyone who's on the 9:10 flight back to Heathrow, I look forward to seeing you on there after 3 points. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll see you there.
I think it's definitely one of it is very easy to get kind of overrun in one of these places. Like you said, the fans are going to be bang on it. They've just had 2 weeks off. They've only won once all season. It's very easy to get overrun. But I also think when you go to these kind of places, it's a free hit. We're only Brentford, do you know what I mean? These aren't the kind of we're not looking to beat teams like Newcastle away from home. If we want to achieve what we want to achieve, we need to pick up the points. We need to be honest. We need to pick up the points when we play Palace at home, when we play Bournemouth at home. So it is kind of a free hit. I just think go out there. Obviously, start with a 5 just for a bit of defensive solidity. But if it looks like we're going one way, I switch to a 4 and just fucking go for it. Do you know what I mean? It's 3,000 Brentford fans up in Newcastle. We'll all be on the piss. It'll be great. I love Newcastle away. It's such a great day. Such a great weekend.
Are you going up, Mike? Are you going up the weekend or?
Yeah. I'm going up on the Saturday, but I'm staying the night, which we always do. That's why I enjoy Newcastle, because it's like you go out whenever the game is. You see loads of Brentford fans on the night out before, because they've all come up the day before to do the full weekend.
Yeah, I respect that.
And even the Newcastle fans, it's different to a normal away game, because you go up there and everyone's just they're all so pissed up before the game that there's no fights, there's no nothing. You get into a conversation with them.
They're very happy to have a conversation. Yeah, they're very good supporters, and every time we go up there, I always have a very good conversation with their supporters. Mm-hmm. They're very loyal supporters. They've been through a lot, so I think it's gonna be a good game. I'm looking forward to it, and. Early start on Saturday, so up on the train. So looking forward to it. So fingers crossed, we get the 3 points, at least a point. I'll take a point, and then kick on from there. So we'll see you all there.
Perfect. I think that'll be a good place to wrap it up. The Ealing Road podcast will be back next week to hopefully discuss those 3 points that you just mentioned in the North East. And also look ahead to Everton at home next weekend. Remember, guys, just before we leave things, if you haven't listened to the podcast before, please share it around with your mates. Leave a like rating on our Spotify and YouTube channels, and also give us a follow on our socials. It's at the Ealing Road on Twitter and at Ealing Road Pod on Instagram. Cheers, guys. See you next week.